somebody says, oh, I'd like to get to know somebody who does this, I'm like, oh, I know somebody who does this. Let me connect you together. I think it ties back to your passions, which I explain to my students is your passions are anything that you will do for free. But if you play your cards right, you could get paid for it.
What the answer you see from the companies, what they need right now in leadership skills, like maybe 3-5 points, like a trend?
When I ask students, what are you looking for from leadership? It is usually effective communication. It's public speak, being able to gain experience so that they can share that.
Hello, and welcome, our dear listeners, to my podcast, Love People Technology Learning. And I'm your host, Tamara Kacharova, CEO Lanes AI. And please join me in welcoming the incredible Sabrina Deshner. Sabrina is a powerhouse in the world of learning and development, has more than 15 years experience teaching and consulting on leadership concepts within organizations. She currently serves as the Associate Director, Leadership Development, Crummer Graduate School of Business, Rollins College, where she is dedicated to shaping the next generation of leaders. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and get ready for an enlightening conversation that will inspire you to reflect on your own leadership journey. And Sabrina, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to connect with you and be a part of this amazing podcast that you have and this amazing group of people that you've just assimilated together. So thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, and we talked a little before our podcast about our meeting. It was, I think, new 1 year ago, right? Like maybe 1.5. Like I've met you in Orlando in Training Magazine conference, and it was amazing. Like just 1 minute meeting, and I knew that we are souls who can match, right? Yes. And
it's just like those energies, like attracts like, and I know we bonded over like our accessories and like all that stuff,
yes.
But our passion for learning and development as well, like I've talked about that also.
Yes. And all my guests, in the start of my podcast, they tell the story about like their learning and development experience, about their career path. And please share your career path and learning and development, and what's you really love to do in this field, and what you are really here. So like 15 years, over 15 years you are in the field. Yes, sure, please.
I love that question because it gives me a chance to sort of reflect, and then I look back and I'm like, wow, that's actually like one of those journeys where I share with my students. When I set out into my career, my first major in college was psychology, because I wanted to own my own practice. And just through experiences is how I found learning and development, and particularly leadership development, and just really fell in love with it. And I was just talking to somebody the other day, is as you start to take on different opportunities, and even if it's like a job or volunteering, or just as you meet people and you hear about what they're doing, you start to really learn what you're most passionate about. So you mentioned earlier that I've done a lot of teaching within leadership development, and that is what I love to do. Like I love teaching and empowering others through that leadership development space. It's a very particular type of work, so I was sharing with my students not too long ago. It's like, I love teachers who teach English and history and math. That's not what I want to teach. I want to teach leadership. So that came from, I think, being involved as an undergrad on a leadership team and getting to teach other students about leadership. And that sort of ignited my passion for it, and knew it was very important, and I've woven that into every career that I've had. But I've worked in nonprofit as an event manager. I've worked in human resources as an employee engagement person. I worked with undergraduate students on, their development and volunteering and activities. And within each of those roles, I just really focused on that leadership development, that coaching. And so when I was able to assume the role here, where I am now in the MBA program, it was all leadership encompassing and working with all those different groups of people. So I've really just come to love working and sharing leadership with different learners, because the people that I work with now are, some of them are coming right out of undergrad and others are executives in companies. And it's something for everybody, no matter where you are in your career journey or your leadership journey. I just feel that this is something that is applicable to everybody and translates into life as well. Like, I think you can use all of these skills. So I was not intentionally, like when I was in college, saying, oh, I want to be the associate director for leadership development. It was through my experience working at the nonprofit, working with undergrads and in HR, that I've been able to get here. So it's been quite a journey.
But like all of that, it's about like to help people to know themselves more and deeper, and learn so like much things about people communications, because leadership for me, it's about people, and leadership skills, it's all about people. And yes, it's really great, and I love it.
And yeah, and I would say too, like having people that you can talk to about these things, because sometimes these are things that close friends or mentors might see in you that you don't even realize is an option until somebody is empowering you to take that next step or to explore that career opportunity or things like that. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And, Sabrina, you manage the Center for Leadership Development and Rollins College. And how do you ensure your programs not only keep pace with current leadership trends, because, a lot of like
Yeah.
leadership trends all over the world, but also anticipate the skills leaders will need in the future, not just like a trend, like some buzzwords, right? Like, yeah.
Mhm.
Can you share
Yeah.
your experience?
Yeah, so we look at data to like what employers are looking for from graduates, but and also I enjoy meeting with individuals that are doing leadership development and learning development within organizations, because I want to see what they're doing so that we can stay relevant for our students and offer them these
Hmm.
opportunities. One of the things that I realized, just sort of realized recently was, to kind of take it back to basics with leadership development and things like that. So things like giving and receiving feedback or effective communication, managing conflict, like those are the things that I think are really important for us to be sharing with our learners, and then also with people within industry too, because there's always going to be the dynamic where you're working together in a team, and you have to understand people's expectations. You have to understand what people value in order to be successful as a team. And so I think some of those things are very evergreen, like they're not going to change. But I continue to attend conferences. I enjoy seeing what people are doing with technology around learning and development, because those things are going to become part of our future workplace. And I enjoy seeing how people are presenting various types of topics and how they're working through those programs in a cohort base or that individual coaching and things like that. And so trying to prepare our students for how they can get some of that experience here and then articulate it when they go out into the workforce. That way they can share with their employers or their bosses, this is the experience I have, this is the leadership experience that I've gained, and here's how it will benefit your company. So just continuing to ask too, from whoever your constituents are or whoever your audience is, like asking them, like, what is the need right now, or where are some things that we can help to develop you as you're working through your leadership journey.
Oh, yeah, it's so great. And like you mentioned, you told that you analyze the data, like maybe with the team, and you ask your audience, you ask your students, what the answer what the answers like you see from the companies, what they need right now in leadership skills, like maybe 3-5 points, I don't know, and you see it like a trend from the companies. And my next question will be, what's the answer from your audience, from your students? Like, is it matching or no?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a good question. So I actually just did a session about this last week. And so we're very intentional about how we put our students together in teams, and they work together in teams the first year during their program. And so with that, we work a lot on that team dynamic and how to be effective in teams. So we did a session last week, and one of the things I pointed out to them is I think it's, on at least the top 5 as far as what employers are looking for is teamwork, team dynamics, being able to effectively work in that environment. And so that's understanding that, again, different perspectives, different experiences, backgrounds, personalities are going to impact how the team functions. And so understanding yourself as a leader and how you work so that you can understand how others work. So the teamwork piece is big. We also talked about on that list is communication. And so that's also, that's written in oral. So we talked about how they can sharpen their skills. We do a lot of presenting here at the college. And so they have to do group presentations and they have to be comfortable with public speaking. But then it's understanding that professionalism piece, like when and how to speak to certain people at certain times, depending on where you're at in the organization and things like that. And then leadership is actually its own section, and it's further down on the list actually, because I think on this list they pull out so many things like critical thinking and problem solving. The technology is important too. They want technical skills, but a lot of those soft skills, or I've heard people say like human skills, like that's what the employers are looking for. Coaching, being able to have difficult conversations or crucial conversations. And yes, and to a lot of that degree, the audience is asking for some of the same things. Like they want the experience working in a team and getting to know different people within the cohorts, because they see the value in working with people from different experiences, different backgrounds, networking. And then also I have what I do at the college is optional for students to get involved in. So we have people that seek out that leadership development because they see that that's important. And when I ask students, what are you looking for from leadership? It is usually effective communication. It's public speaking, or I guess executive presence, being able to gain experience so that they can share that with employers and things like that. So it's sharpening those coaching skills, being able to give feedback, having those conversations. I'm seeing that on both sides, and so the approaches may be a little different, but the concepts are the same.
Yes, thank you for sharing, because it's so like I'm really curious about that. And of course I know what's the companies looking for like in the market, but like what's the students are thinking about that, it's really something, yeah, something interesting. And it's I love it. And Sabrina, you've mentioned personality assessments in your profile in LinkedIn, like before I start to record my podcast, my episodes with the guest, always I analyze the bio, the information about my guests and like everything. And how do tools like DISC and Gallup's like Clifton Straits influence the way you facilitate leadership development at your institution? What do you think about this point?
Well, I think that for me, my leadership philosophy, I believe that you have to know yourself in order to lead others, and so I feel strongly about a lot of those assessments, and that just how it's an important tool for you to learn about yourself. So it is not going to be 100%, but I think what it does a lot of times is it reaffirms or just makes you aware of some of the things that you may already know. And then it helps you also to articulate it. And so when I use these, in workshops or as I'm facilitating these conversations, sometimes it gives people just common language to use, so that we're all on the same page when we're talking about, when you talk about maximizing your strengths, you use like the Clifton, the strengths finder and things, you have that common vernacular that you can use, and students also can learn new ways as to how to
Mm-hmm.
express things about themselves. So I think it just helps to engage in conversation because you're talking about yourself, but it also makes it also presents it in a way where you're able to see things that you may already know and then understand how to articulate it differently or better. And it also brings to light, things that you do really well, things you may need to improve on. And then it helps to bring awareness to not everybody does lead or function in the same way. So, how can you better understand others and how to work with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you mentioned that's your personal leadership philosophy. But like my next question is about what's your favorite theory which you've read about, or maybe some really book about leadership and you really love it, and like you support the idea, like you are at the same page with the author of this like idea, like maybe you can share something.
Yeah, this is it is old school, but I loved the Leadership Challenge. I was given that to me when I was in college, and I think that it speaks to me because there's things like inspiring a shared vision, encouraging the heart, and those all speak to what I didn't realize at the time was my leadership philosophy. So I point back to that a lot in my teaching and things like that. I also really love, again, an oldie but a goodie, Stephen Covey's like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think, again, as an individual, self reflection and things like that, getting to know self, that's a great book to look at. And then Leadership Challenge from a team perspective. So those are some um, books that I've enjoyed and, again, was exposed to in college and then have just seen their influence on my leadership philosophy or my leadership journey as I've gone throughout. I love Simon Sinek and the things that he talks about. I love Brene Brown and those individuals and things as well. And I've used those different things as I've been
Mm-hmm.
facilitating. So, um, I enjoy all of that, but I see those two things. And I think it was just because I was exposed to it early in my leadership journey is why it has connected to me so much, and how it continues to influence and play a role in how I lead.
Yes, I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And you are really a great expert in leadership development, and in your on your LinkedIn profile, you run a weekly feature called Weekly Leadership Soundbite, and I love it. And I congratulation you because it was 1 year, right? Like last week.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Almost. Yeah. I can't believe it. Thank you.
Yes, and could you share where the idea came from and what this series is all about? Who are your guests and what are some of the most valuable insights you've heard over the past year? Like, share something really specific about this point.
Yeah, sure. So, thank you again. The leadership sound bites were actually a really big deal for me. And it came up, I think I was at a networking event or something when we were talking about how to share what we do. Somebody had mentioned doing videos on LinkedIn. And at the time, I was just so nervous to do that. So, I am not comfortable posting on social. It was just not something that I thought I was good at. And so, but I realized that I enjoy sharing leadership development knowledge. And so I wanted people to get that exposure. And I was interested in doing a podcast, but that was the thought of like, how to put that all together was a little overwhelming. So it was one of those things where it's like when you overthink, it like kind of stops you from doing it. So I just decided, okay, I'm just going to do it, really informally. It's just going to be a minute. And that's how I'm going to start. And it was like a personal development piece for me, because the first time I recorded one of those, it took me, I think, like, I don't know, 10 takes. And I sent it to like 12 people to double check, like, does it sound okay? Did it sound like, can you see me okay? And so now when I post them, I check if I can hear the sound, and then I post it. And I don't think so. I think as a leader, I've grown, because that's part of, like, putting yourself out there and showing a different side of you and things like that. But then I also do have a lot of positive responses to those things about those leadership topics. And so I know that it's also making the impact that I wanted. So it was twofold. And just so people could see from a leadership perspective that, there are different things that I can talk about in that space. And the idea to bring on guests, I just love hearing other people's philosophy and their sort of their story too. So that started at an event that I was at, where we had two fantastic leaders that we work very closely with here at the college at one of our events. And I just asked them, would you be willing to do it? And they both said yes. And I was so excited. And so now I sort of just like spring it on people. Like, will you share 30 seconds? And so next time we see each other, like, you're going to have to do one with me. Because it's just
I prepared something.
just be ready. Yeah. So it's just a fun way to share, because I think and if you look at the year, like, sometimes it is me, but it's different levels of leaders. So I think that everyone has something to offer, no matter where you are in your leadership journey. So that's what I also like about it, is it's a very diverse group. So I've loved, you said, like, try to pick a favorite one. I'm like, it's really hard, because I've loved having, like, I've had current students who have given their leadership tips, which I love. And then I've had like executives at big companies give their insights, which I also have enjoyed. And like, some of the things that have stood out to me is how much people value having, like, one of our speakers said, like, leaders can't have bad days, because that impacts the people around them. So it's like, you do have bad days, but you have to really manage how you're showing up for people. And then some of the other ones that have come out, there's been a theme about leaders listening to their people, empathy for people. And so just that human element comes out a lot. And again, I don't prompt people. I just ask them, what is your leadership tip? And so a lot of times these are the things that are coming up. So it comes back to, we really just want to be seen and heard as humans, and appreciated, recognized.
Right. Oh my God. I love it. And I love the idea, like, so simple, and people can share really something unique, because we know a lot, because we are practice it, like, we do it like every day. And like, everyone is really so, like, and smart, and have all the resources to know how to work with the people if you love people. And like, yes, it's really true. And thank you for this point, and like, about this leadership sound bites. And like I mentioned before I talked to you, that's it's so great, it's so nice to see you every week in LinkedIn. Like, I cannot see you like every day in person. I live in Fort Lauderdale. You are in Orlando. It's so close, but like, we see each other just like 1-2 times per year, and it's so nice to hear you and see you. It's really great. It's really great, and I love the technology. That's the technology can connect us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it's really great.
It does. I mean, you use these platforms as like a community, because I do feel like, even for you, I'm keeping track of like your traveling and things that you're doing. So even if we're not able to talk or see each other, it does create that sense of, you're still keeping in touch with people that you were not
Right.
necessarily able to decades ago. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And I want to ask you about collaboration, because like collaboration seems vital in your role in your college. And can you describe a specific maybe partnership with other entities at Rollins that led to a successful program outcomes that you have? And like, yes, tell about this. Maybe like what was your biggest takeaways from the experience about partnership? Like, yes, share with us.
Yes, collaboration is really important because we work very closely with faculty and the other staff, and because we are a small graduate school, but it's an amazing program, and so we want students to have an excellent experience. So my favorite collaboration started a few years ago, and it was with our admission department, and it was to start a student leadership team. And the student leadership team was responsible for reaching out to incoming students to help them through their admission journey. And the reason why it's one of my favorites was because of the impact that it had on the students coming in, but also the current students, and how much they got out of connecting with students and sharing their experiences so that they could equip the incoming students coming in. And I just enjoy working with that department so much. We just have such amazing like staff here, and they do such a good job bringing in new students into the program. And so, but that was something that we created brand new, and it has gone through a lot of different iterations, and the expectations have shifted a little bit. So we still have that program. It's just in a different form now, where they're engaging a little bit more once students get onto campus. And so working with that department, one of the things that I learned was it's important too for setting expectations, making sure to revisit role clarification, and then communication, because there was a lot of moving parts as far as we had to know the students coming in, we had to assign the current students to the incoming students, we had to know who was communicating with those students, when, how often, if there was an issue, who do they talk to. So we had to create a whole process around that. And so that was a partnership between my office and their office, and also learning. And I mean, I think I knew this, but it was just a nice reminder that like we work with some amazing, talented students. And so those are students that are leading that student leadership team. And so they were just very willing to jump in and make that part of their learning. And so one of them did it as a project. And so they were able to put that on their resume and get experience out of that. And so what came from an idea from the students, a collaboration between these two departments, is still in existence like 5 years later. So that's pretty awesome. So I love to see that program and how well that it's doing, because it just came out of a lot of people who really just care about the student experience and want to make it a great experience for students. But yeah, the collaboration piece was really important, because we wouldn't have been able to do it like on our own.
Yes, I love it. And like, thank you for sharing your your ideas about that. And you frequently speak about establishing trust through relationship building, and it's about collaboration too. It's about, I think it's a key idea of like all the relationship which we have. And can you provide an example of how you have implemented this principle within your team or your programs, or like with the students, or like for everyone's? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hear that a lot, that that's really important. I think it is, and it takes time. But I think that as long as you're willing to take the time, like it can and pay off for you. I just enjoy connecting with people. So just one of the things that I do with my team is I just get to know them as humans. And so it might just be knowing like what's important to them, or just how are you spending your weekend and how is that going, and things like that. So I think getting to know them, and that was I think that becomes a big part of it, because then you establish rapport, and then it's setting expectations on very clear expectations, and then follow through, doing what you say that you're going to do, making sure that you are setting benchmarks, because it's hard for me sometimes to give up control of like programs and things, because it's like, oh, I've been doing this. I'm not, I just, it's just like clockwork for me. But especially in the roles that I'm in, we're trying to develop leaders. So empowering them to do some of that. And so it's helping to guide them, but then it's establishing benchmarks so you can check in and make sure that they're doing okay. It's giving them the space to try something new and then learn from if it doesn't go the way that they thought it was going to go. Sometimes that could be a little nerve wracking, but it always ends up, I think, paying out in the end, because the feedback that I've gotten, especially as I've worked with the students, is because I'm giving them a project to own, they now are feeling like, okay, this is a big deal. So I want to do a good job. And so I know that she's here to help. And so they step up and they also end up doing a great job. But I think it starts with we've like got to know each other. We're seeing how each other work, and then also creating that opportunity for feedback. I think is really important too. So I usually establish with my team, okay, at the end of every semester, so that's once every 3 months or 4 months, we're going to do feedback, and it's going to be, you're going to give me 3 strengths in one area of improvement, and I'm going to give you three strengths in one area of improvement. But I share that with them at the beginning of the semester, so they're not caught off guard by that. And so it's more of a conversation around how things are going. It's not focused on, oh gosh, things have already gone bad, now we have to talk about it. It's, this is what you're doing well, and here's also some steps for how you can improve. So I think creating that dialogue in that space also helps to develop trust as well.
Yes, yes. I totally agree, and it's really true. And you know, the relationship and like trust. I think for me, it's key idea. It's a value which I support, not just like I everywhere. And I think through the trust we can build everything. It's really true. And yeah, I love it. Thank you for telling me about that. And I think the last professional question today for you will be like, given the evolving nature of work, what emerging trends in learning and development do you believe will become essential for leaders to embrace in the next 5 years? Like, can you share your ideas about that?
Yeah, I think sort of an overarching from that soft skills perspective is just coaching, because I think the role of management is changing. And so I work with a lot of people who I think have a certain expectation for, if you're working with them, they have the same like level of work or expectation of work as they do. And so I think that as you're developing soft skills and you're feeling more comfortable with that feedback, communicating effectively, being able to communicate priorities, like things like that, that just makes your team more effective. But it's the things that go without saying that I always feel like should be said. So it's establishing, it's like talking about what you just said. What are the values of the team? How do you want to give and receive feedback? How do you prefer to be communicated with? Are we going to be a team? Are we going to communicate via Teams? Are we going to communicate via email? Are we going to have weekly meetings? I think having the knowledge and skills to have those conversations is really going to be helpful. And then, of course, like being able to leverage technology artificial intelligence within that space is also going to be very important, because you want to, remain competitive and you want to remain relevant and things like that. So you have to know what's out there, because from a leadership development perspective, a lot of things are going online. And you have a lot of tools to help you, and the tools are amazing, but you have to have the foresight to be able to like weed through the information, like what is good, what am I not using, what is accurate, what is not accurate. So
analyze and critical thinking about that.
yeah, absolutely. So I think those skills too, um, asking those questions and being able to, and I think also, from a learning and development perspective, being able to track and measure. It's very hard to track growth and experience. So, but how can you be capturing that? How can you be, for you as a leader, seeing where the growth is happening, but also for your team, like how can you be communicating their measurements and their development and their growth and things like that too? Because one of the things that is challenging about leadership is we're all very task focused when we're in our job. Like we have things we have to get done. And so it's keeping development sort of at the forefront. So because as you're developing your team, they're going to be more productive, they're going to be more impactful. But that takes time, that takes work. So making sure that that's happening as well.
Yes. And right now you mentioned about like to be more productive. How do you recharge and find inspiration outside of work? Can you share a recent like experience that's reignite like your passion for like leadership development or everything? Like share like something really specific about you.
Yeah. No, I love the segue. It was great. Perfect. I love to travel, and so I go on vacations and things like that. We just got back from a week long cruise, and it just gives you time to kind of reset and do something fun, and it helps me get those creative juices flowing. So like without even realizing it, I might come up with ideas for presentations, or I might come up for ideas for events or things like that, just when you're out there and able to kind of turn off that for a little bit. One specific example, and I guess it is travel, but it was professional travel. I had the opportunity to go to a leadership retreat with an awesome company called Authentica. And the CEO, Craig Lucas, I really appreciated getting to know him, because his programs are just so meaningful. And so one of the things that what I realized when we were there, it was amazing location out in California, and I was privileged enough to go. I was fortunate enough to go. But while I was there, and listening to everybody's stories, because you get to connect on a human level, there's a lot of opportunities for reflection. You get to hear people's stories. It's very motivational. It's very inspiring. And that's where I was reminded about the kind of back to basics for leadership development. It comes back to, we all were broken into groups, and we had to talk about our personal why and our personal mission statement. And that reconnected me to, this is why you do what you do. Like, this is why you have pursued this vocation. And so that was really recharging to be able to go do that. So it was travel. So I got to meet new people and experience something new. But it was directly related to leadership development, and but it did help me like shift my mindset a little bit too. So that was really cool.
You mentioned right now about what's your personal why?
What is my personal why?
Yes. What is the yes? Because you mentioned that you like analyze and like yes, you ask the question about that. So what's your personal why?
It's more. It is like hanging in my office at home, and so like it is definitely gonna not sound as articulate as what is on the paper, but it is basically to empower others to learn about themselves so that they can empower others to find things that bring them joy. And so that is just when I'm either at work or in my personal life, like I just enjoy connecting with people and connecting people. So if somebody says, "Oh, I'd like to get to know somebody who does this," I'm like, "Oh, I know somebody who does this. Let me connect you together." And so I think it ties back to your passions, which I explain to my students is your passions are anything that you will do for free. But if you play your cards right, you could get paid for it. And so I just enjoy making those connections, but I'm really passionate about helping others to get to be their best selves, whatever that looks like. So that's what drives and motivates me, and it motivates me to be involved in the things I'm involved in.
I love it. I love you. I love you. I love it. And I love you, Sabrina. Oh my God. Thank you for sharing. And yes, it's really about you. And I see like every time when I see you in person, I see this passion about like connecting people and about like something like really like so warm and deep conversations. It means a lot for me too. Yes, it's really about you, and I love this why. Yes, and yes. And you work closely with students, guiding them on the path to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to choose one piece of wisdom to share with the next generation of leaders, what would it be?
Yeah. My advice would be um, embrace and have confidence in your experiences, your skills, what you can bring to the table, and then be able to articulate that to employers, to bosses, to your teammates. And so this goes for, so we say students, and I think people sometimes think about like undergraduates and things like that, but I think this is relevant to all everyone who's in their career journey right now. So I again like work with executives and career changers, mid-level managers, new career people, and so that advice is something that I've seen that is just really impactful, and something too that I've learned through my career journey as well, because we take our strengths sometimes for granted because it's just something we do naturally. We don't even think about it. And so the more you can articulate that and really lean into those, you're just going to be able to align your career, your leadership, your personal life so well if you really are leaning into that.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much. And in the end of my each episode, I ask three questions, the same for all my guests. And first question is about what was the last thing you asked ChatGPT?
Okay. I So, like on a personal note, it probably was wedding color palettes because I just got engaged like a month ago.
Sabrina.
Right now, it's for wedding planning.
Oh my God, I love it, and congratulations. And yes, I remember the story about the love of you and your future husband. And
you were there at the very beginning. Yes.
yes, congratulations, like
Thank
all of
you.
you. Like, yes, I know that you will be happy and like save these feelings through your life. And I know it's, oh my God, it's an amazing. Thank you for sharing to my episode about that. And thank you, ChatGPT.
You're welcome. Right? We're so excited. And yes, using all the technology to plan. And there you go, world. The big announcement's out.
Yes, it's true. Okay, tell your favorite quatrain or lyrics and explain why exactly you choose it, you love it, and it's your favorite. Yeah.
So my favorite quote is life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And that's from George Bernard Shaw. And I guess I was saying it so much, somebody bought me a magnet that says it, but it just speaks to me from, again, that leadership perspective where I'm a lifelong learner. So the more I can learn and the more that I can continue to evolve and develop, the more I can help people do that. That just really spoke to me when I heard it. So that's been something that I refer back to and is part of my leadership philosophy as well.
And in the end, last question, it's called Ask the Next Guest. On my podcast, here's how it goes. Every guest gets to throw a question at the next guest, and I believe it adds a unique touch, allowing the previous guest to pose a question to the next one. Betty Danivitz was my wonderful guest, and she passed on her question to you.
If someone gave you $5,000 to use towards making your dreams come true, what would you do with it?
Wow, that is a great question. And I do love the logic behind like 5,000 versus like $1 million.
Absolutely.
Because you have to be more intentional. So what came to my brain when you asked me that was, I would, from a profession, if it was professionally, I would put it towards building a business. So because that's been something that I've wanted to do through consulting. I've wanted to do that a little bit more. And so that's where I would spend the money professionally. Personally, I'd put it towards my wedding. That's another dream that could come true. But
oh my God, yes.
Professionally, it would be to help build that business.
Right. Good. I love it. And it's your turn. Ask my next question. Ask the next guest about something really interesting for you.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to think about a good question to ask then. If you could travel back in time to any time, when would it be and why?
Great. I love it. And I will ask my next guest next week about that. Yes. Thank you. And you know what? Like, we made it, Sabrina.
That was so fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, and thank you for joining me today on Love People Technology Learning podcast, and thank you, Sabrina, for sharing your really invaluable insights and experience in leadership and development. Really, thank you for your story and for your really life values which you shared with me and with our listeners. And one more time, congratulations with your
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me share my story. I just love how you lift people up and really elevate them and just give them a space to share. So thank you so much for creating this space for us to do that.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. And to our listeners, your support means the world to us. And it is your engagement that fuels these conversations and helps us explore the depths of leadership, personal growth, and the intersection of technology and learning. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we release new episodes every Tuesday, featuring exciting guests who bring fresh perspectives to our discussions. Thank you for being part of our community. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with love. Bye.